Okay, now open up the door.
Hey, I wish you didn't flip it off.
Not today.
Did Dean do it?
Don't matter, she's got a ball to her
Awesome, thank you.
Dan, no, he's smiling. Oh, Phil.
Okay, it's 5:30, so I'd like to call the meeting of the school board to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Colleen.
Calhoun,
Here.
Huseby,
Here.
Kirsch,
Here.
Kissinger Wolf,
Here.
That's an entrance.
Long,
Here.
Scuball,
Here.
Later.
Swente,
Here.
Baloo,
Here.
Zimmerman.
Here.
Did you get it
Yep.
okay?
Okay, we have a quorum. Next agenda item is to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved, Kirsch.
Second.
Second, Baloo.
I have a motion, a second, to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion, changes, deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item is the district administrator report. Wendell?
Just a couple things to report out. At the workshop, you heard Darren Sievers talk about the joint presentation that he asked us to be a part of. That will take place in Green Bay, July 12th, I believe. Ron is going to try to make that if he can. But basically, what he was looking for is a couple of different school districts that utilize school perception survey data to inform decisions, to feed a strategic plan, so on and so forth. So they picked us, and they just want us to give a presentation on how we utilize that moving forward. So that'll be coming up. I met with him this morning, so we will be partnering with Sparta School District, and they'll be giving a presentation as well. And they do a couple of things differently than we do, so I'm interested in learning how they use some of that data as well. So I'll bring back some of that information after that occurs. I wanted to give you just not a lot happening politically right now, but there was some information released recently by the Legislative Fiscal Bureau on Milwaukee Public Schools passed a huge referendum back in April. So the Legislative Fiscal Bureau did a report on how that referendum is going to impact equalization aid across the state in different districts. When that report came out, I got a couple of questions from a couple of different media organizations, mostly in that Milwaukee-Madison area. Tomahawk was listed, most schools were going to be negatively impacted by 3%, maybe one was 6%, and there was a couple of other smaller ones. Tomahawk was 17% and 30%. So we had huge impacts compared to everyone else. And so we dug into that a little bit and trying to figure out what's going on with that. And really what we found is this. So I don't know if this has come your way or not, but in case you field questions or see this, I did send a couple of statements out that to the folks that asked for them. What we found out was the Legislative Fiscal Bureau used the data from 22-23, which fed the 23-24 equalization allocations. Okay, so they're a year behind in it. Each year is based off the previous year's spending and data. They have no way of knowing how Milwaukee Public Schools referendum data, because of how it steps in, it won't impact anything until 25-26. So their report was really based on saying, let's just look at what it would have done. If that was in place this year, how would have it impacted schools? And so with us, we had a huge jump, second largest jump in equalization aid across the state last year. So that's why it appeared that we would have been impacted the most. So essentially this may or may not impact us. It depends, because it won't come due until an entire new biennial budget, and they may put more into equalization aid to offset what this referendum would do statewide. I'm not going to claim that I'm an expert on how Milwaukee Public Schools is funded and how all that comes into play, but I know that in their case, the more you spend, the more you get. And that's the case in Janesville, Beloit, Madison Metropolitan, your bigger school districts. It just looks a little different than what it looks like up here, where it's more based on population and property value. So it's the same concept, it just plays out differently because it's huge dollar amounts. So the point is, if this comes out and you see these staggering numbers, don't be alarmed by it. More than likely, it's not going to have an impact on us. And the way that's framed isn't exactly, it's kind of misleading because it looks like we would take a 17% cut. Well, in reality, we had a huge gain. We would have had 17% less of that amount. So it would have been about $300,000 that we would not have gotten in equalized aid that for this coming year. So I think it's really confusing if you don't read the entire report, which is about 20 pages long, to see how that plays out. But if you have questions, if something comes your way, if folks ask you about it, feel free to refer them to me, and I'll do the best I can to try to explain how that works. But I don't want the folks in our community to think that they're going to be paying that much more taxes next year or down the road because that equalization aid won't be there, because that's not exactly the case. So I wanted to just make you guys aware of that. Any questions on it? Okay. Give you a little update on summertime project and where we're at. So the gym floors are nearing completion. I think the high school gym is done, and the field house is very close. We had the tuck pointing project across the front of the building. That's been completed recently. We have 2 new projects that will be added, and we'll talk about that a little later, but the replacement of our fire alarm circuit board, it's out of date. We can't get parts for it. If it fails, we're gonna, be in kind of hot water there, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. So we want to be proactive in getting that replaced, and then the replacement of our playground equipment that is cracked and broken and in rough shape as well. Staffing report, we had, as things stand right now, 11 retirees and 11 folks that voluntarily left the district. And then over the course of the year, we had 7 replacement staff that had either quit or taken different jobs or something like that. So as we stand right now, we have filled all of our positions with the exception of 2 speech and language pathologists and the THS counselor. Those are the only posted openings that we have currently, other than a couple of the paraprofessional positions that will be posted coming up as well.
Have we done any interviewing for any of those positions? They're still open?
Not yet, not for the counselor, and not for I don't know that we even have any applicants right now. We had 1 applicant for counselor that took a different job before the interview, and then the other 2 are relatively new, so. And that's pretty much it. That's what I had planned for the report tonight.
Okay, any questions for Wendell? Okay, hearing none. Next item is the consent agenda. There's several items on the consent agenda. Meetings, staff, changes, above pay, resignations, volunteers, so on and so forth. So I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed.
News to be so moved.
Second.
I'll second it, Kissinger Wolf.
Motion is second to approve the consent agenda as listed. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is staff reports. Before we get a couple of presentations, do you have any questions for any of the staff reports that were presented? Dick?
I just wanted to ask a little bit about the firefighter program, how that was initiated, where it came from, whether it was, how that fits in. I'm pleased to see the activity around the community service project, and my understanding is Celebrating the Trades really brought in a lot of community feedback. So that perhaps, and then I have a question of Wendy. So the firefighter program that.
Sure. So I guess maybe I would start with this. It's well identified around the state of Wisconsin that we're in high need of emergency response people. So that can be everywhere from EMS to firefighters and so on. So in an effort to try to get more people involved and initially trained and into that pipeline, the CT incentive grant that we've been speaking about over the last few years has, that's part of that grant program. In addition to that, the EMS personnel receive additional benefit as an individual. So while we as a school promote a program like that and implement it, and we'll receive dollars back for all the successful completers, the individual student will receive a $500 stipend from the DWD, not from school, but from the DWD. So there's a personal incentive for them to also get into these programs. So there's a couple other job titles within that specific category that has the same benefits. So we looked at that obviously as not only a local need, but a state need, and what can we do to partner with our technical colleges. So myself and Dan Ryder worked with Nicolet Technical College and their new programming there to work with their deans. And we basically did a an interest inventory with a lot of our students, because we were already seeing that several of them were showing interest through academic and career planning, that some type of emergency response was something they were interested in. So spoke with individuals, had a meeting with our large student body about the opportunity, and then using that data, definitely saw there was an opportunity for us to offer that class. So Nicolet instructors, just like our CNA course, Nicolet instructors will be here on campus teaching that class first semester next year, and so they will earn the Firefighter 1 certificate, which immediately allows them to join the fire department workforce and have a limited set of duties, but they can continue their training with Nicolet directly. And we've already been talking with Nicolet about the possibility of offering Firefighter 2 here on campus. So initial response is really positive and good, so we're looking forward to that and starting to prep a classroom for that. So that's the short version.
Is that Firefighter 1, is that a 1 semester course?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll actually be offered 2 classrooms down, so we're prepping that. And there's some, the way that they're describing it to us is not only is there classroom learning, but it's also going to be opportunities where they will go to the Nicolet campus and work in their new facilities. If you haven't seen it, went to the open house a couple of times and visited. It's excellent. So those kids will also go there a few times, as well as visit some of the local fire departments and be on site with them. So it's a good program, and that model has worked really well with us for CNA. So we asked Nicolet to continue to work in that model with the firefighter class.
Is there an age requirement for that program?
It's going to be, I think they have to be turning 16 for Firefighter 1, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
And the trades program, just a little bit about what kind of reaction is it? How are the students reacting to that?
So something, again, that's a statewide initiative, and those of you that have seen Skills USA is the career and technical student organization for tech ed, just like FBLA is for business, FCCLA for family consumer sciences. Basically, Skills USA at the state level was really trying to do some promotional positive pieces of really valuing students going directly to the workforce and working within the trade industry, whether it's continuing through an apprenticeship or just working in on-the-job training itself. So what we wanted to do was join that effort and acknowledge our students locally that we knew had direct connections and were planning to go on and work with some of our local employers. So the trades day signing, much like you would see in an athletic environment, has been replicated around the state, and we wanted to be a part of that and promote some of our students that we knew here were directly going to be working with some of our local skilled trades people. So it was a really good event. Andy Kleisig helped organize it, get families in. We set up a curtain, and we had families and employers, and it was just nice. It was a really great way to celebrate the kids and the employers that they're going to be working with in our community.
That was really neat.
And I have a question of Wendy. Wendy, I'm sorry, I've forgotten what the Love and Logic program is. I know we put $10,000 on it I believe, in the list of expenditures, but that it isn't the money. I forgot what the Love and Logic program is. And secondly, we released 16 individuals left the special needs program. We went from 183 to 184, however. So we really didn't see a decline.
No, the referrals during the year, so some fill up, some meet criteria. Some continue to meet criteria, some get dismissed if they no longer, and then new ones get referred, so it's kind of a wash.
And what's the primary reason they no longer needs services? Is it behavior, academics, all of it, none of it?
Oh, it could be any, so there's different criteria for all different areas of disabilities, and there's a checklist that's a state checklist and federal guidelines for whether or not they meet criteria for a disability. So every 3 years, we reevaluate, and if they meet the criteria for the disability, they continue to need an IEP and require special education. But if they no longer meet criteria because they're progressing and making progress, then they could get dismissed.
I guess I mean, is behavior one of the categories that would qualify you?
To get dismissed?
And
Behavior is a thing that could
behavior is
qualify you.
one of the qualifiers.
Yep, or if the behavior improves because
I
of
know
strategies.
Yeah,
we've
we
seen
put
that
a lot of
happen.
energy, the reason I'm asking the question, we've added a student services person, we put a lot of energy into the behavior side.
Mhm.
Are we starting to see that materialize with those who have special needs, leaving gaining the necessary skills?
I'd have to look up and see what area of disability that they were dismissed in, but it really depends on the kid.
Okay.
It's really student dependent. I could look up and see how many, and let you
Yeah.
know how many were dismissed from each area.
Well, I'd just be interested to see if all the energy we're putting into standardizing discipline, the work we're doing with interventionists, all that, and of course the work of your staff, how is that producing an end result for us?
If some of it gets put towards special ed, but the majority of it gets put towards regular ed students, and supporting the teachers for universal interventions, coming up with behavior plans, Hawaii, and giving all different support so that hopefully that they wouldn't need a special education referral, so that they would get those services first. And then by providing tier 1, tier 2 supports, we meet those needs ahead of time. And then they're able to show progress. And we track all of those students that have concerns through our MLSS system. So every time we have a classroom teacher that brings concerns with us, we talk about them at that student study team meetings. We come up with an intervention, which those supports that you're talking about apply to. We implement those, we track data over 6 weeks. If it's successful, then we maintain or slack off a little bit to see if they can maintain it. If it continues, then we do another round. And then if there's still no improvement, then they would receive a referral for special education.
Okay, the pupil non-discrimination report, does that fall into your world?
It does, but let me answer your love and logic question
Oh,
first.
my first one, yes,
So
love
love and
and logic.
logic training, the funding for that came out of Aspirus grant. So all the training for that came through a grant from Aspirus.
Okay.
So the expense for that, luckily, Lincoln County and Aspirus Foundation, the Community Foundation grant paid for most of that, so that's a bonus. So, and the thought of it is it's more about thought process, about how we're interacting with kids ahead of time instead of here's a curriculum, do it. It helps staff and families think about how we're interacting. And we also offered some parent trainings for that as well earlier in the year, and we'll continue to do that next year, and that was also funded through the Aspirus grant.
Along the same line of Dick's question, I guess I'm somewhat interested in knowing what the teachers feel about students that are coming in and out of various programs. What do the parents feel? I mean, at some point, are we getting parental cooperation with the teachers feeling that their needs are being met so they can more successfully teach those kids? Or they feel like are they struggling more?
Ones that have been dismissed from special education?
Even those that have come in or leave, what are their feelings on the students coming in and out? How do the parents feel? Because sometimes I think if a student's released, the parents aren't quite ready. They feel they still need more, but then they're told that they don't meet certain qualifications. So what's left is the teacher, unless I'm wrong, has got to meet those needs. And that's just one of my concerns. I mean, that was a very good question you asked.
So if you're talking about special education criteria, whether they continue to meet, again, I would have to look at how many behavior students were dismissed. And I can certainly, I'll share that number with Wendell, and he can share that out on what.
I'm just curious, Wendy, because I worry about the teachers having a lot on their plate and being told that this is okay, but maybe it's not okay.
So what it looks like when you do special education criteria It's a team decision,
Yeah.
so there's parents involved, there's staff involved in it, and it's based on standardized testing, so there's behavior assessments, there's academic achievement assessments, so we look at whatever those students, some have occupational therapy, like physical, gross motor, fine motor, all those types of things, so whatever services that student needs, assessments are given in all the areas that they receive services. So when you go through the criteria checklist, it's not something we develop here in Tomahawk, it's state and federal criteria. So it's yes or no questions for each one of those, whether they meet it or not. So if they meet the criteria and everybody discusses that as a team and determines whether or not, based on those standardized scores, whether they continue to meet criteria or not, and then if they don't meet criteria, then they get dismissed.
I'm not arguing that one bit, I mean, I understand that. My concern is, or maybe it's just a cautious concern, how do the parents feel about a child that's being released and they don't think is ready to be released, or a teacher saying, I don't think I'm ready to handle these different educational needs without proper assistance in the room? That's my only concern, Wendy.
Well, and I think our student study team address those things, so they don't get dismissed if they're not, if they're still displaying.
So you're not getting a lot of what I'm getting, you're not getting a lot of kickback for parents saying, this is not working, I want more, whatever. And I understand a parental's right to say, no, I don't agree with that. I respect that. That's their choice. But I'm just wondering if we're getting feedback that might affect a classroom teacher's performance. And that's my only concern.
No, they're part of the team that makes that decision.
Okay.
And I think the majority of our kids that have been dismissed, I don't know that I'm pretty sure we haven't had any kids with emotional behavioral disabilities dismissed, but again, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, so I don't look up
Okay.
specific, but I will get that to Wendell. He will send
I would
out
appreciate that,
what
yes.
area of disability that they qualify under.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to see an agenda item in the future, as an individual board member, just saying, the report on pupil non-discrimination reports, every 5 years, as I understood it, is prepared. It has far-reaching implications in the improvements area. Hire a social worker, group interventions versus individuals, underrepresentation in scholarships for students with disabilities. I'd like to see a board report on the recommendations or the findings were listed, and then the recommendations were there, and then some actions there were really no actions that I picked up out of that report. How we as a district are going to respond to that, number one, do we even have to respond to it? And I'm sure we do in some way. And how we're going to follow through with that. So so that we're able to report effectively on what we've done in relationship to the requirement. From my standpoint, that's because it's like Act 20. It seems to be far-reaching and touch an awful lot of areas where the board at least needs good knowledge of things like that, social worker.
So the pupil non-discrimination report, it has to be done by every district in the state every 5 years. So they rotate through the country, which states have to do it. So Wisconsin's year is this year. So every district in the state. So you review your policies, you review all the different, there's 8 or 10 different sections in there. And then you say what we have in place, ideas, and just suggestions that could address some of those areas. So it's not action items, it's just, here's some strategies that could address some of these concerns.
So you do all that work and it doesn't result in any actions. I mean, I said that incorrectly. Actions are not mandated by the
Correct.
persons who ask you to file the report.
Correct. Here's some suggestions that could maybe address it.
It's a self-monitoring.
It's just a self-monitoring.
Is what it's.
I guess I'd still like to see, not a 4-hour report, but a report on how we're dealing with that. And finally, thanks for the summary piece that you put in this year's or in this month's report. That was really helpful just to read that summary of the activities in the district. Thank you.
I also had a question for the report too, Wendy. I looked at the district data set, and do we contract with the social worker right now?
No, this is old, the data from the data set is, so we look at historical data so that some of the information is current and some of it's previous, so but that we linked that one in because it has like AP classes, it has our disciplinary actions, it has a compilation of data. The other section that we were going to link up also was the WiseDash data, but WiseDash has been down for several weeks where we pull data from, so I couldn't pull from those additional sources.
No, it just said that we had 0.99 social worker on that data. So I was curious.
That's the state report on it. So I don't know if it's from.
It was from our report, our part.
I think that might be. So the social worker part was probably still included the previous social worker because some of that data is pulled from 2021 school year.
So maybe that should.
So it's lagging data, so that's the data that the state has available. They had available at the time we pulled the report.
Because it kind of contradicts the report that says we need a social worker, says we have one, so. I just noticed that, but.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, then we got a couple reports. One is on the spring sports wrap up.
Hey everyone, good to see you again. Lonnie, thank you so much. I was vacation Thursday, Friday, and I was at Ace, and Lonnie came up here to do some stuff, so it was nice to actually have the face, but welcome to the board stuff. So anyways, not gonna go as long with this one, because I think I pretty much wrapped everything up with winter. I'm gonna start with activities. The only things left over from the winter sports season, activities-wise, is kind of a really big one going on, is this summer's FCCLA actually is going out to nationals in Seattle, Washington. So if you know anything about that club, Allison Ewert does a ton of different fundraisers with that group within our community. They go up to Rondelay Ranch and 4th of July, clean up garbage. They get a lot of money, so they self-fund that trip for them if anyone qualifies for nationals for them to go. So we have 4 individuals actually going out this year. Emma Hoff individually, Morgan Kretschmar individually, and then Riley Swan and Raya Petta are going in a group project. So we got 3 entries into the nationals in Seattle at the end of the month, so they get to take a nice little trip out there, see a little different part of the country and everything, and compete in the FCCLA nationals, so that's pretty cool for those girls. The last activity that I don't think winter I rounded up on, that was in the April report, was forensics qualified everybody to state this year in their different domains, so there's 23 team members that went to state. We ended up getting 3 golds with that. Elena Circus, Cedar Hoffman, and AJ Shirts got gold medals to bring back, and that goes on whenever you walk out door 6 there on the left side. They get put up engraved on that plaque and stays there forever, so congratulations. In terms of spring sports, weather was the story. We're still dealing with it, we're still dealing with rain, but snow-wise was actually really nice. We just got a little crazy with fitting in rain, weather delays, and finding out what works and getting games in for the kids. So a couple track meets we held here this year. It was raining all day and we're getting calls all day long, why aren't you canceling, and sit on the radar and well, let's hope 5 o'clock it clears up, and end up 2 of the 3 we were hosting ended up being beautiful nights once the rain stopped during the day. So baseball, first year head coach John Roberts took over the program. We actually finished 5th in conference, which was our best finish since I believe it was 18. We swept Rhinelander, we split with Anago, and we split with Pines. In the Pines game we were actually up as extra innings, and we blew the lead, had a couple errors. Pines came back tied and lost an extra inning, so I'm at home. But so in terms of baseball, it was really nice to see us have a little success within the GNC. Early in the year, they struggled non-conference-wise, and it wasn't because of anything other than kids were on college visits. They went down to Hustisford for a doubleheader, and Braden Larson was out on a football recruiting visit that weekend, so one of our better players, he was gone, and Brody Rigney was playing his first AAU basketball tournament. So it was just one of those things where kids had to make a choice, and that was a choice they made, and we went down with what we had and did what we could. So anyway, so finish out good. They lost playoffs first round Coleman 7-4. Coleman was the conference champ of the Marinette Oconto Conference. Traditional baseball powerhouse, goes to state every other year, every 3 years when they get class through. So they went and gave them everything they could handle, which was good to see at the end of the year for the kids moving in next year. Majority of the team will be returning, as they were heavy junior sophomore group of boys that were getting varsity time this year. Softball, kind of same story with them. GNC was extremely tough this year. Moseley just lost in the state finals. Lakeland has a D1 commit who's top 10 nationally ranked player. She is a horse. If you've ever seen Taylor throw, she is amazing and she's going to do very well. Unfortunately, we got to see her for one more year. But with that being said, the GNC is really tough. So we took care of the teams we need to take care of and just going to kind of get over the hump with middle ones. But our non-conference schedule, we fared very well in. Playoff-wise, they had a very interesting day with the playoffs with senior awards on Wednesday, graduation on Friday, the WI makeup. Tuesday we ended up getting rained out. We thought we were going to hit a window. The window poured 20 minutes and we destroyed their field. Medford actually played Shawano 20 minutes north at the right time, but our field got destroyed. WeGo was really good. We got to thank their administration, Bill Seibel. They worked with us to play a 2 p.m. game so we could get the senior girls down and get their game, get up for senior awards. They won that game and moved on, and then they lost to the 1 seed Peshko, who ended up losing the sectional finals. Track had a banner year this year. Finally got back on track, kind of our old 90s, early 2000 years. The girls set 4 new school records for us in multiple events. Elise Giebel set the school record 200, 400, was part of the 4x2 team that also broke the school record. That included Hallie Derleth, Faith Derleth, and Alicia Bormans. And then Ayla McCormick has been flirting with discus records since she came in as a freshman, and towards the end of the year she finally broke through and got the discus record under her name. So that's pretty exciting, and 2 of those records were broke at a home meet, and Elise broke the other 2 the week before the Autobacher, which we won the Autobacher, which is a big meet to win for track. It's a pretty important meet. And then down the stretch in the regional sectionals, they also broke multiple records. Ended up Elise made to state in the 400, and the 4x2 won the sectional and made to state. So it was first time, I believe, in 3 years. Scooby, you're right, Noah Buckwalter might be our last track entry. So so it's good to see us back down in lacrosse participating in the state meet. On the boys side, Patrick Samuelson won the conference shot putting title. People don't realize he was thrown with a fractured scapula. In our home meet, he fell in the relay, got up, was laughing about, and you see me eat it, Flynn, and then next day he's like, yeah, my shoulder hurt. Well, he threw a conference, and then when he went to warm up for regional, something popped, and he's like, I don't feel right. Come to find out he had a pretty significant injury that he won the conference shot putting title with. So otherwise, Patrick more than likely would have got through in the shot and disc, 2 in the sectionals, and had a chance there down the stretch. And then also our 4x800 team was conference champs on the boys side. So it was nice to see a good improvement. Our numbers increased drastically in track this year. We have a very strong middle school group coming up too, so the numbers for that are looking really good in the future for the track program. And then lastly, golf. Golf was really our weather warriors. I don't think they played around this year where it wasn't raining or it wasn't 35 degrees and windy. They did not have very many good rounds on the course this year. So it was kind of the joke that they're the weather warriors with everything going on. Sawyer Hanna did qualify. Katie's son did qualify the 3rd year in a row for sectionals individually. So he got to go to the sectionals at Turtleback and try to get to state. And just overall, our conference fared very well. Athletics this spring, Lakeland won boys state golf. Moseley was runner-up for softball. Moseley's at state for baseball. They play tomorrow. Medford also lost in the sectional finals for baseball, so we almost had 2 of the 4 teams in D2 down at state for baseball. And then track, we had multiple individual champions come over conference. Westbroker for Annabelle broke state record in the long jump, won it again. Richter for Medford was a state champ in the 800 on the girls' side. Owen Clark won, I can't remember if he was a mile or, yeah, I think he was a mile and was second in the 2 mile at state. But the GNC fared very, very well statewide in spring athletics this year. So yeah, that's kind of my summary. And Drama had thank you. And Drama also presented their spring play, which they do one public performance, and then mainly that's for the young kids. But it was a big full of fables, and they present their spring play to finish up the week before graduation. So yeah, that's what I got for you guys.
Any questions?
Great report, thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of backwards. Okay, I can step back a step. Merrill's coming into the conference next year?
Not next year, 2 years. Yeah, so
Okay.
it was approved by the GNC. Merrill is coming in for all sports for GNC. They'll be the 8th member of the conference. So when the GNC started, back in when we were still part of the Lumberjack and Lumberjack fell apart, Merrill was actually a charter member of the GNC. But at that time, there were about 1,100 kids. And those 2 years they're in the GNC, they pretty much won conference and everything. And then they'd have to go play Wausau West, Spash, Rapids, and playoffs. So they're like, this just doesn't make sense for us because we got to play these guys. So they opted out, and that's when Rhinelander came in. And now with Merrill's declining enrollment, they're going to settle right in where they're going to be probably about the 5th biggest school in the GNC when it's all said and done in 5-6 years. And just in terms of travel and everything, and them being a Division II team for basketball, baseball, and having to schedule non-conference for stuff anyways, the conference felt that, yep, they're a good fit to come back in. We'll make it an 8-team conference that helps us with scheduling, 2 less non-conference games we have to schedule for our sports. It strengthens conference for wrestling and brings in another soccer program, even though we won't use that word around Tomahawk right now, but, it brings in, it helps fill the soccer side of the thing, so yeah.
Okay.
I love soccer.
So we're the smallest or second smallest school in the
We're
GNC?
still gonna be the smallest school in the GNC. Pines is bigger than us, but what I like to tell people with the GNC is I really want us as an athletic program to look and kind of take the Rice Lake model. Rice Lake is 750 kids. They play in the Big Rivers Conference out west, so they play Eau Claire Memorial, Hudson, Eau Claire North, schools twice their size. They finish 500 in conference, they drop down in the division they belong in, all they do is roll the state. They end up in sectionals for almost everything. I think the girls track team actually won state this year, if I remember right. But that's kind of my vision for Tomahawk athletics. Like, conference championships are great, but at the end of the day, we want to be playing down in Madison and finish our year at the state tournament and playing until the last day. And I think if we take kind of that mindset going into this stuff and understand that we're iron sharpening iron and we're competing in a tough conference, and if we do well in it, then when we drop down to our division we belong in, hopefully we start making some deeper runs as we go.
So we're not losing anybody out of the conference, then with them coming in, okay, good.
Nope,
Good.
we're just adding, going to, instead of 17 to an 8-man.
Okay,
Just out of curiosity, how many of those teams or the schools have tennis teams?
Well, the conference is different for tennis because they actually we have non-charter members in for tennis to fill out that. So Rhinelander, Lakeland, Anago, Moseley's hit and miss. They have it, then they don't. Medford, and then it depends if you're going boys or girls. Because on the girls' side, Ashland's been in. Wausau Newman's been in on both sides, boys and girls. I think Marshfield Columbus might be in on the girls' side at times. So tennis is kind of hit and miss. Phillips had a team a few years ago, and they just dropped the program, but Phillips was part of it. So the GNC is kind of the landing spot for area tennis teams. But if you're looking, schools our size in the area in terms of tennis teams, there isn't any. It's Pines doesn't have one now. The Northern Lakes have one. It's kind of those bigger schools, and obviously Wisconsin Valley schools have tennis.
Okay.
So, yep.
okay, any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay, overview of Act 20,
Hey,
you're up.
I brought Katie Hanna with me.
Hi, Katie.
Just to bring back the voice of the teachers through this process. This could be, is it okay if I sit down?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, it's hard to follow, Ryan. To just spew that stuff out
I know.
without any notes.
It's impressive.
Well done. So this easily could be a multi-hour presentation or multi-hour discussion. As you had mentioned, this is a massive, massive thing. So what I try to do is pare it down to something that's manageable that we can start with. And if you have questions, we can always dig deeper and come back and do more. Basically, when we look at Act 20, there's 4 basic areas that we're focusing on right now. Act 20 and curriculum and instruction, kind of a big area there. That leads to our resource choosing between where we are with K3 to 4-5 to 6-8 all the way up to 9-12. The PD we use to support our teachers and push them forward and help move them forward. And then how it affects the assessment system that we have, and then there in turn how it affects the MLSS system, how we support our kids that are struggling, or those that are exceeding at a higher level. So this is just, I tried to take that main line view of it, and there'll be some offshoots as this goes on, but questions, just interrupt, let us know. we can work through it. Act 20 basically comes out and says, there are 9 main components that we want to assess to. And those are the ones: phonological awareness, phonemics, phonics, you have your oral language. That's all of your information when it comes down to PK-K1-2. You get your vocabulary, you get your background knowledge, which is always present and never really leaves. And then you end up with a writing component. Comprehension starts to kick in around 3rd, 4th grade. And fluency is something that we're always driving towards and slowly increases as we get further up in age.
Fluency is defined as?
In this case, that is a loaded question. Fluency would be, it's measured by rate of reading.
Okay.
So this is all about reading. That's all Act 20 is. It's not about, comprehension is a component of it, but in this case, it's reading fluency.
Okay.
So it'd be rate of reading.
Okay.
But getting all your vowels and all your sounds and everything else right in there too. So that's a very, very big question.
What's the writing portion of it?
The writing portion is just that, it's just the writing instruction. So writing instruction comes much later. So it really starts to kick in, bless you, it starts to kick in around 3rd grade, but writing really takes off in 5th grade, probably late 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and then it just all turns to writing eventually. Because
So
eventually reading drops off.
So the writing is literally writing?
Writing is literally writing. Yep, writing your paragraphs, getting the right process through it, getting your sentence structure there.
With so much use with computers and stuff, I would think it would be,
Somebody still says,
you know, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't see many
I was just
handwritten
gonna
things.
say, it's not necessarily meant with a pencil.
Yo, not with a pencil, it's typing.
Oh,
It's
okay,
composing your
Okay,
essays
I'm
and
thinking
everything else. No,
like this,
not
okay.
physical writing,
okay.
although that's a nice conversation for some time. As I think, you brought it up earlier in the year, I remember one of my first ones when you got in here, you asked the question about Act 20. It was something that we were researching at the time because they were still trying to figure out everything. They're still trying to figure out everything. They have most of it down, but there's a couple components that will keep coming up. Where we started was in our Hatchet Hits. These are our 30-minute after-school PD sessions. So we started these all the way back in October. Angie McPherson started doing some presentations on phonics and phonemic awareness. We had purchased Haggerty. Teresa had purchased Haggerty before she left. And Haggerty focuses specifically on phonological awareness and phonemic awareness. And with that piece, we trained that right at the start of the year. A lot of people, they did a really nice job implementing it, but they were implementing a piece. They didn't understand the whole system. They were just implementing, oh, phonemic awareness, we need to do this. So that, we knew we were having gaps as the year went, and I kind of needed to see where we were. So on June 6th, this last Thursday, we brought Amy McGovern in. She spent 4 hours with the entire K4 staff, and 5 was there for a little while. She went through everything with the science of reading. It wasn't meant to be an in-depth poll. It was meant to be, we're gonna study this and we're gonna get you guys exposed to everything. Her words, I talked to her after she left, and she had said, we're not done, right? I said, no, we're not done. We have a long ways to go. So none of that actually accomplished anything for the Act 20 training, which is a totally separate ballgame. All staff need to be, all K3 staff need to be trained, PK through 3 staff need to be trained in one of a certain number of approved training programs by the state. The one we've chosen is Cox Campus, and I think I'm jumping way ahead. I might be jumping ahead, I'll come back to it. We'll skip it when we get there. So Cox Campus is it's an online resource, and it is later on in the presentation, but it's an online resource that we're gonna be using to help support the Act 20 training for all staff. So we'll come back to that in just a second. We did end up purchasing CKLA for PK through 4, and Savas in 5, 6, 7, and 8, and Katie's gonna talk about that actually in 9, 10. But one of the pieces I anticipated you guys asking, because it's a financial piece, is the state mentioned in Act 20 reimbursement for programs in the K3 spectrum, not in the 4 and up spectrum. So we did that because we had to. They don't know what they're reimbursing for yet. This is part of those unknown pieces. What they've told us very clearly is that there will be a form, some way to submit how much you expended. There will be a percentage. The last I heard was roughly 30% of what you expended on K3. and it'll be reimbursed in 3 years. So thinking about that and trying to be fiscally responsible, Wendell and I had a whole bunch of conversations about this. Do we do a 3-year contract? Do we do a 6-year contract? How many years do we actually put out there right now? We settled on a 3-year, and part of the reason is simply because that reimbursement will come, which will help offset the next reimbursement, or the next motion of that same one. So it won't be such a hit in 3 years when we have to do this all over. Although not to the same extent that we did this one. So after we went through the basic foundation of Act 20, we went into what program do we choose? And this is where I'm gonna kind of step off and let Katie take it.
So when we first started and decided what program we were going to look at, first of all, Mark decided to have, I think it was one person from each grade level, kind of one person from each area. We met probably almost weekly or every other week after school to really take a look at, okay, where are things now? What is the state saying? What are we feeling? So the first thing that we did was we sat down and Mark had a whole sheet that we kind of all went through and decided, what is it that we're looking for from this curriculum? And what do we want to see in what we're going to choose? But also one that the state is also going to say is a chosen one.
And at this time, we didn't know. They weren't even on the beginning process of that.
So we went through and took a look at what we wanted from a curriculum and the different grade levels. Did we want one that was going to be pre-K 5? Did we want one that was going to be pre-K 8? Did we want, like, how did we feel about the different grade levels and how they would intertwine with everything? And what we, there were many changes along the way. We at first thought that we wanted a pre-K 5 or 8 one, thinking that would be nice, especially with our school, that we were unity across the way. So we sat and we met. We first had 3 different programs that we decided to look at. Got the sample materials, started piloting them a little bit in the classrooms, very minimal though, and then said, scratch all 3 of those.
Well, none of them were approved.
None of them were approved by the state. So from then,
it was it's a good process.
Yeah, but the great thing was Mark would always say, like, all right, this is where we're at, and now this is what the state's saying. So what do we feel now? And he always came to us and asked us our thoughts as the educators of what is going to be best for our kids and what's going to work best for all of you. So then we found that there were 2 programs, EL and CKLA, which were the 2 that we decided were the 2 that the state said that we were going to
Wit and
take a look
Wisdom
at.
was also an option, but Wit and Wisdom involves 3 programs. Wit and Wisdom, really great reading and GEOs. And training 3 programs with a staff our size and getting good at those 3 programs, the team early on decided this was not the right thing for us. That sustainability wasn't there no matter what or how good the program was. We just couldn't physically sustain it.
So the first step was we went to visit Marathon, and that was to look at the EL program. There were middle school with us there too, correct? Middle school, and so there were teachers from 4K up to all through middle school. We all went over there for the day, and as we got there, took a look at it, talked to the teachers. You could go they let us really move about, ask any questions. It was a great learning experience. I think a lot of us went into that first one thinking, this might be it, this might be the one for us, and left thinking, I don't think that's the one for us. And then we went up to ABW to take a look at CKLA, immediately walked in, and everything that was said was like, yes, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're needing, this is what would be great for our district. So got to take a look at it there. Mark and I actually ended up in a 2nd grade teacher's room who was a phenomenal teacher who actually runs the Facebook page for 2nd grade CKLA, who has shared things with me. So really felt like, okay, this was right. So we then again met to talk about, like, okay, is this what we're going to move forward with? The great thing along the way too is, like, I know a lot of times administrators you'll feel what they would like. None of us never knew what way Mark ever felt. Like, it very much felt like it was us making this decision. So we,
Sorry, I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, we're done. So then we decided that, and then it was now, what are we gonna look at for what grade levels? Like, what grade levels is this going to work for? And then decided that it would be pre-K 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 to go a different route, because it just made sense for what the needs are at those different age levels.
And based on the state, we're only confined by the state's choice in PK3. And we actually could have chosen a program that was not on the list. There's just no reimbursement for it. There's nothing like that. But even then, how do you justify to the community by saying, oh, we're gonna choose a different program other than the state, but yet we're gonna still do everything the state's telling us we're gonna do? It didn't feel right to even have that as a consideration. There's other programs that are coming on right now, but all of them, there were two committees that reviewed programs. There was a DPI committee, and then there was more of like a state consortium committee. Between the two, one was more political than the other. One allowed 3 programs, and total 3 programs, that was it. The other one allowed a whole bunch, and then there was weird how one snuck on at the end for no apparent reason at all, that was never reviewed. It was really strange. So we kind of said, we're gonna end up looking at the one where the consortiums really did it, because they seem to have taken their time and done a better job of it. But the CKLA piece is, Amy came in on June 6th, and in addition to the science for reading, she connected it all to CKLA. So they have a background now in how this is starting to work, and then they're gonna get a significant amount of training coming at them in August. So that brings us to all the PD. And now that's all my printouts in my office. So there is a full ELA rollout plan at this point, because we not only have to support all the training for CKLA and SABIS, we have to support all the training for Act 20. So the amount of training these teachers have coming on them, especially those in K3, is very significant. So as a team, we've already talked about this and kind of said, we need to be hands off of everything else. We need to focus on these pieces. We can't add another thing to the pile here, because it's gonna put them over the edge. So in regards to Act 20, I said before that we went with Cox Campus. Cox Campus is a series of videos. So what we're doing is in August, every K3 teacher will get basically, they'll get the first set of videos. The first set of videos is 4 hours long. It's on oral language. So they have the entire month of August to watch those 4 videos on their own. They watch 4 videos, they do a couple quizzes on there, or a couple checks basically for understanding. And then because I know that some of our staff are overloaded, they won't get to the video. Others will click through, it's gonna happen, where they just click and watch. And some of them will really deep dive into it. We're bringing Amy McGovern back in the middle of September for an hour-and-a-half discussion on how oral language connects to CKLA. Because to me, there's we need to support the staff in getting their Act 20 training, but then there's a portion that says we need to do what's right for the district and our students and get the teachers fully trained so that they can actually implement these concepts. So now, every month, they get a series of videos. In September, it's an hour-and-a-half long. So it varies on the amount of videos that they have. I spread it out over the course of the next year and a half. Year and a half because I felt like we could tackle one every month, but skip the months of December, skip the spring break month, skip those obvious months that are necessary to skip. It brought us out to just around November of next year. So when a teacher goes through and they take the very last video, there's an assessment at the end of the last video, and that's where they get their certificate. Once they get their certificate and they've attended those discussions, they'll get a $1,000 stipend for doing that. Now, I want to explain this because I feel like we have to. And do you mind?
No.
Katie's a perfect example of this. Katie's moving to 4th grade this year. She is not doing part of the training. So what that means for Katie moving forward is if she ever wants to become a K2 teacher or a K3 teacher again, she has to go through the training, because it is a stop sign. If you don't have the training in 2 years, you are no longer teaching in K2. So because of that, that's kind of one of the reasons why I chose Cox Campus. Because Cox Campus is free forever and it can be done whenever. So if Katie decides to come back in the classroom, she does the training and she's good to go. The $1,000 stipend though is only for our teachers who are teaching K3 right now, because they're the ones who are required by the state and have no choice to do it. A perfect example as just a corollary to this is if a teacher wants to go get their 316 license to be a reading interventionist. We don't support that because that's them extending their own professional career and making their choices. The teachers who are in K3 right now don't have a choice. They have to do this, and that's why we're supporting them with the stipend. If a 4th or a 5th grade teacher wanted to do this, they would have to do it on their own, no stipend for it, because it's their choice to do it for their career. So we're trying to be smart with it, but yet at the same time, really support the teachers that are in the position that have to be supported. The other wonderful thing for Cox Campus that I'm hoping never happens is, let's say that a teacher is taking, let's say Mr. Steckbauer here is taking our Cox Campus training, and he goes through this entire year next year, and then something happens and he ends up leaving us. He can then finish his Cox Campus training and he's fine. So it doesn't hurt anybody, they don't get the stipend because they didn't finish it with us. So it's flexible for the teachers, yet it serves our purpose. The program training is a different story. They had the first training in June 6th, all of them, all the way up through 10th grade, even the ones in Savas. On August 26th, all the grade levels will be receiving their own individualized training. It goes, I want to say it's PK and K go 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it's broken up by grade bands, and CKL, that's all on site. So CKLA and Savas are sending people here for a full day of training to go through. Then in addition to that, starting in October, they all receive coaching sessions. So both CKLA and Savas are going to be sending coaches in to support them in the classroom. They observe the classroom a little bit, they give them feedback. It's very personalized. They're not trying to, it's not vindictive at all. It is literally, this is what I saw, have you thought about this? Then they have what are called strengthen days. And strengthen days are additional learning. One of them, the first one is a half day on site, so all the teachers will be taken out and we'll figure out what that is. And when I have it on an in-service day right now. Just a heads up. But those days, that's another half day of training for them after they've had some experience in the program. And then they have virtual ones, which are 1 hour strengthen days. In addition to this, we've taken Angie McPherson's schedule for next year and basically eliminated as much as we could. Because what I told Angie is we want her in the classroom as much as possible. So she's going to be working in PK all the way up through 10th grade. The focus is going to be CKLA, but yet she's still going to try to support some of those pieces in 5th grade all the way up through 10th grade because that's Savas, so it's a different program. But our focus is clearly getting our PK3 up off the ground.
So is this content, is the training content and process, or is it process?
From our end?
Yeah, from
yes, yeah. The Act 20 process, or that's all content. Act 20 is all content. They don't care about what program you're doing. They're teaching you phonemic awareness, phonics, or language, all those components. Okay. The program training, that's your process, or that's process. Okay. From understanding how you're using the words.
Yeah, well, yeah, how to.
Yes, the program training is definitely how to.
And to standardize it within the district.
Yeah.
So from our standpoint.
Totally. So if you put yourself, yes, 100%. And then we're also going to be pulling in Amy McGovern every month to provide that bridge basically between this is Act 20, this is your process, your CKLA Savas training, here's the bridge between them. This is how it works. And if you put yourself in those teachers' shoes, they have to play that dance all the time. I'm learning content right now. Now I'm learning how to do this in the classroom, my instructional pieces, and they have to find that bridge. That's why it's kind of we're going to support them as much as we can.
So this is a significant challenge to a 30-year teacher.
Very much so. Very much so.
Who's been doing this successfully for that, for any length of time, but certainly.
That's the other one. So we talked about that as a team, and I just told them flat out. We met with them in PLCs, and I said, for you guys, the biggest challenge is you've been doing Fountas and Pinnell for a lengthy time. And now, Fountas Pinnell on a spectrum can be all the way on the wall. While CKLA is on that wall. They are completely opposite programs in how they function. So our teachers not only have to learn how to do, they have to shift their mind to understand that this is a different form of learning. And our first couple weeks are going to be tough because we're going to have tears, we're going to have frustration, and then hopefully sometime maybe around, no, you're not. Sometime around early October, we start to see it switch a little bit and we start to find those successes. One of our biggest tasks next year is going to be celebrating those early successes.
you said that, in the near future, you cannot teach K through 3 unless you've gone through this
2
training.
years.
How long does this training take?
So it is, it's on the sheet, it is 64 hours of training.
Okay, and does it have to be separated?
No, somebody could sit down and do Cox Campus in a week.
Okay,
I would not want to be that person,
no,
but they could do that.
okay.
And
Do
we've added
they
in-
have to demonstrate any
There's an
proficiency?
assessment at the end of it. Yeah, so it's just an online assessment. Could they study for it? I mean, could they have a computer open here, prompt the question and answer it? Yes. I mean, you could cheat your way through it if they wanted to. The reason
Okay.
for 2 years is all the universities are now transferring their programs over. So at the end of this year, at next year's hiring window, if we hire a student out of a university, they will have had to have fulfilled the Act 20 requirements. So they won't have to go through the training. So
Okay.
it's only current teachers right now in the field that we're looking at.
Okay, because I was concerned when you said that, wait a minute, if you're switching to 4 and you don't have the training,
Yeah.
and next year you decide, well, I'm going back to 2 or 3 or whatever, how long is this training gonna take, and can it be done and still be able to switch?
Well, not only that, but
Regular.
Wendell's gonna have to carefully look at moving teachers around to make sure they're now, are they qualified for
Yeah,
this?
right,
That's something
So
on
one
his
of the
plate.
pieces that we're gonna do is in Skyward, we can now tag certain pieces, and we're gonna note who has had and fulfilled the Act 20
good.
training.
But for new hires coming
New
out of
hires are
college
fine.
will be one thing, but for folks with some, experience coming from a different school, it's up to the district to police that. There's nothing on their license that checks a box, so.
Okay,
So we're gonna make sure all of our teachers get a certificate, that they keep their certificate, that one goes in the file, so that we know that if they need it, we can pull it out for them to support them in those pieces. But yeah, this is one of the next 2 to 3 years is kind of just gonna be sloppy. And there's gonna be some teachers who are hired and we have to go, look, you have to do training, here's Cox Campus. You have to finish this by the time school starts. And then we note it from there. The other thing though is that we also have to understand that this is locally controlled. The state is not, there's no oversight on the state of this at all. So we could not do anything and still keep our teachers. Nobody would know the difference and the state doesn't care. But yet the state tells us we have to do this. It makes no sense at all. Yeah, that piece of
I
it,
wouldn't say
that's
they
not.
don't care, but,
Well,
but there's no police force
there's
that's
no
gonna come over.
oversight.
Yeah.
Yeah, care is probably the wrong word. Yeah, so training is a huge deal. The scariest part is, it's the easy part of this whole thing. Because you just go to the training, you learn. It was harder to schedule it, but now that it's scheduled, that's the easy part. One of the complex parts that we have is assessment. The problem with it is this is our current assessment breakout. In K through 8, on the ELA side, we do FastBridge, and 9, 10, and 11, they do an ACT suite for the screeners. We have a homegrown ACT process that we started this year. Seems to be better than what we were doing. On the math end, in kindergarten, we have a local assessment. 1 through 5 is iReady, FastBridge, and 6 to 8, and then the ACT process for math also. Next year for the state, or for what we're doing, is the math one, we're extending iReady up through 8th grade, so we have one seamless assessment all the way up. But you'll notice that K through 8 on the ELA side is blank. July 15th, the state is supposed to tell us what assessment we're using for screening. So it's not that we have a choice in this one. This is one where the state is saying, this is what you're doing, and everybody in the state has to do it. Now, where we have to do it though is
For
K through 3.
Yeah.
So, for me, it's hard to form that sequence going up. So that's why we just talked as a team. We did not purchase FastBridge as of this point next year. We have the quote. We can always go and say it. We're going to go back. We're going to go purchase FastBridge. What the state told us that we could do is run our own screener or our normal screener in the fall, and then switch. And we had to do theirs in winter and spring. But then if you think about it, we're purchasing FastBridge, and then we're purchasing their screener, which that isn't fiscally smart. So we just are ripping the Band-Aid off, and we're going to figure it out as we go. So it's another piece where in the fall, it could be a little bit messy for us in this regard, because we're gonna be learning it really fast.
I'm glad I'm retired, holy crap, man.
Yeah, this is a fun one.
Both.
Holy.
So, but where it gets really interesting to me is where it starts to affect the MLSS system. And Wendy brought it up before with the SST meetings and all the assessments. Well, this is one of those assessments that starts to determine where students are. So it's taken 3 or 4 times a year. I say 4 times a year because right now we're toying with a 4th screener because the state mandated that the 3rd screener, the spring screener happens 45 days before the end of the year, which is smack dab in the forward exam window. So there's no way we want our students taking the forward exam and taking our local screeners at the same time. So this year what we did is we bumped it earlier before the forward exam window because we couldn't go after it. So what a lot of teachers wanted is a 4th assessment because they wanted to see how their students did at the end of the year, not basically in early March or late February. So that's why it depends kind of where spring break falls more than anything else. But this has a major effect on the MLSS system because that's our initial screener. It's our initial assessment for flagging kids basically, beyond the teacher's subjectives, teacher determinations. But if a student, so I'm gonna use Guy here because he's next to me and he's leaving us, so I could get him for only a little bit more time. So the guys in my classroom, Guy scores below the 25th percentile. Now what I need to do is basically what we started this year, and kudos because to Wendy, because we got this going right away in the conjunction between pupil services and the CNI. We put this together early on in the year and basically broke a lot of things this year to get it to where it is. So Guy scores below the 25th percentile, we call an SST meeting. We have a conversation about that child. We determine what interventions are needed. The interventionists, as of right now, are making an assessment tree. Basically what that means is for every one of those 9 sub-areas that were in the first slide that the state is asking us that we have to teach by, we have a sub-assessment for it and then another intervention. So if the screener and then the diagnostic identifies Guy scores below the 25th percentile on the screener, he gets a diagnostic. Diagnostic identifies phonemic awareness as a struggling area. We have an assessment in Hagerty for phonemic awareness. We give them that assessment. It tells us specifically where the intervention should go. So it's a lot of assessing to get there, but we can really drill down all the way to the core fabrics of where that student or what's causing that student to struggle. Then it's a matter of us on acting on it and actually making something happen. However, for every student that scores below the 25th percentile, they have to get a reading readiness plan. So that means that we have to have a meeting with the parents to sit down and talk to them about how are we going to get your child above the 25th percentile. So this plan fits right into our current MLSS structure. There is nothing we have to change at all. So that is a huge bonus to us. We probably have to get a little bit more defined on some pieces, but that's easy stuff. The system was made already. The other thing that happens though is now every student is required to get a paper copy or a notification sent home through Skyward somehow that shows how they're performing on all the screeners and in layman's terms what that means. For most parents we can't say, oh, they're at the 46th percentile. Or even telling a parent, if I went up to Wendell and I said, Wendell, your daughter's performing at the 40th percentile, he's gonna go, yeah, I'd like her higher, but 40th is normed. That's where they should be, that's fine. Most parents wouldn't understand that 40th is normal. They'll go, that's normal? Yeah, that's normal. That's proficient. So having those conversations and figuring out how to phrase that in a way that parents are going to be able to understand it, that's a task that we have to jump. But all that stuff is still kind of coming at us.
What's the turnaround time for the assessments? When you do the assessment that you get the results?
Instant, because most of them are digital now.
Good.
And that's why I'm not so worried about the fall, except for KN1, because those are always interview-based. You can't really give a kindergarten student a digital-based assessment. They don't play on screens that way. Yeah, but the turnaround time for so if Guy takes the screener, we get the results within 2 weeks, parents have to be notified of those results.
Okay, much better than what it was a decade ago.
Yeah. It's a very fast turnaround time.
Good.
Very fast for that. Yeah.
So how do you fix the accountability for this? In other words, is it the results that we see here, or is it obviously the actions every day in the classroom, lead to hopefully
Lead to- yep.
that.
Mhm.
Is this the primary way that we're looking at that?
Improving our reading scores?
Yes.
Yes. This is such a global shift that right now we just have to go through. We have to teach, we have to listen, we have to learn, we have to do everything we can to support all of the teachers as best we can. If in 3 years, because CKLA being new, we have the implementation next year, you have a growth year in year 2, but you're really gonna start seeing growth hopefully in year 3, hopefully as earlier. But let's say the studies say it's year 3 that you really start to see the growth. If in year 3 we're not seeing all the growth we need, you reassess, okay, what did we do? You know, is there a gap in this process that we missed? Was it too much at one time? Have we started to see gains, we're just not seeing the quantity of gains that we want? There's a lot of variables that are gonna go through, but yes, the accountability piece is on those scores. As much as I hate to say it, it's how our first graders do this year, how our first grade students this year do on their 3rd grade board exam.
Okay.
How our screeners are showing, are they showing a consistent number of students proficient? That's where we have to hold it accountable to.
Thank you.
Which that, I have to say though, that also came up in the classroom, in the PLCs we had, because we look at screeners to identify students and to flag students, but a screener is really a building-based measure. It's not a student-based measure, which is why the diagnostic comes into play.
Okay.
So that's where we really have to be careful how we use that screener. It's not a punitive piece, it's just, oh, there's a concern flag going up. We have to look at what's happening.
Well, knowing how difficult this transition is going to be for some of our staff, and I'm really appreciating that after all my years of, you know, working in a business setting, making systems changes or whatever it is. Coming up with a developmental thought process system around accountability to get us there, I think is critically important, so it doesn't turn out to be a, quote, disciplinary, I can't think of another word, but disciplinary process. It needs to be a developmental process that's supportive.
Well, and I think the benefit we have in this case is that is our screeners. I mean, we have the way to measure success. We just would like to see the success at a higher rate. Now, the question is, what I think the interesting discussion there, Dick, is next year, what's that number? In 2 years, what's that number? We can't even have that discussion right now because we don't even know what we are in fall because it's a brand new assessment. And we have to see our fall results first, see what the level of proficiency is. I mean, if it came back at 65% proficient, I'd go, okay, we can work with this. If it comes back at 12% proficient, it's a totally different conversation.
Okay. Good luck.
Looking forward to the reports.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's, wow.
Yeah. I'm not putting you on the spot, Katie, so don't answer if you don't want
Oh,
to.
yeah, you did.
How is the energy? I'm not gonna use acceptance and that, you know, how has the energy been around this?
You know, I think like Mark said, it is a big shift. Myself, I've been teaching for 20 years on this side, and it is to shift to this side.
Right.
And that was one of the discussions we had in our meetings, is this is a whole new thing. I think that the curriculum that we picked really sets up for teachers to be successful. You know, when we went and visited, it was every single, like if there's 4 classrooms at a certain grade level, they're all doing the same exact day. They're all teaching the same exact thing. The curriculum sets up and has the materials so that you can be successful and can make that shift because it's all laid out there for you. Especially with somebody who's been teaching for years or a brand new teacher. It is very much there for us, which is one of the things that we were looking for.
But I think a 20-year teacher could do a lot of positive things to influence a first, second, third-year teacher for the success of this.
I think when Katie and I saw it, that was one of the, I think I commented to you at one time, I think I could go in and teach this. I just wouldn't teach it well because I don't have the toolbox that the elementary teachers have. You know, a first-year teacher can teach this program. They have to develop the art of teaching. which this will allow them to focus on that art a little bit more. Whereas one of the other programs, I think the prep alone would have probably prevented us from focusing on the art of teaching.
Mhm. And the supplementing of other things.
Yeah.
Like they were putting other things in, whereas this is all you need. It's all right there for you.
Okay,
So I think that everybody's ready for the shift, and now we got the materials, and seeing all of that was a big excitement to dig into them. And
Good luck.
I guess, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, as you get into this, this next year and so forth, that if you could, you know, not every month, but
No.
on some kind of basis.
Yeah.
Just give us an update how it's going, how's the staff dealing with it, that, I think we'd appreciate that if you could.
We'll do.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds like there's a lot of good support there. You know, I'm thinking about in healthcare where we went from paper charts to computers, and now we've gone to Epic and that, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's a whole learning shift. You know, and having the support that it sounds like you built is gonna work much better than what we've had.
Approximately how many teachers you gotta go through this?
Fourth grade, 5th grade with special ed. So you're looking at 30 in elementary, plus, well, when you get to middle school, it's departmentalized, so it's a little bit different. There's 4 middle school teachers plus 3 sped in middle school. You're looking at about 30 teachers, 31 teachers in elementary. Plus PK, so 33, 34. We're still counting. But it's a good number. I will say that on the 6th, the room had energy. I mean, it was exciting. It was fun to see because there's a lot of PDs, you know, you sit there and you're like, okay. There was energy in the room. Everybody was paying attention. Everybody was into it. There were a lot of really good questions.
especially for the last day.
Yeah.
Of in-service. I mean, last day of our school, it was good.
And Amy
Good.
McGovern's wonderful.
That's just
She was great.
She knows her stuff.
Yeah, without a doubt. There's a reason why we pulled her in.
I'm really
Okay.
glad to hear that the teachers were heard, or that that you expressed that. I think that's a really important piece of making something work effectively, is to lay that groundwork. So compliments to whoever was involved with that.
Team did a great job. I mean, the literacy team was a high volume team as far as, and there was nothing for it. We just sat here for an hour and a half after school talking about different things and going places. And it was a very solid team.
Okay, thank you. Next item is the achievement gap reduction, and Guy, I think you're giving that presentation?
Yes, twice a year I have to report. We have a 5-year grant. This is our second year of this grant. Our allocation for this year was a little bit over $437,000. So we report on, like I said, twice a year. We do a report to the board in February. We do another one in June on math and reading in K through 3. The grade level teams decide their assessment. Some of them go with the iReady, some of them go with the FastBridge, some of them choose some different assessments. That may change now with where Mark is taking the team with what he just talked about. But for this report, you're going to see the results from February. That's in the fall semester progress, and then over on the right, you see the spring semester progress. As the teams, the grade level teams turn these into me, there seemed to be a little bit more pride in the results this year than what I've seen the last couple of years. Teams seem to feel, and looking at the results, I see that we've had some improvement in our ELA and math scores. And the results look more solid, I think, this year than what I've seen the last 2 years. So, like I said, there was some optimism with these results, some excitement that the teachers seem to have in turning these in. So I think you can see that in reading and math. We have made some gains, so that was nice to see with this report. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the report? Okay, thank you, Guy. Okay, 10, recommendation to commit a beginning balance of $114,000 plus. Any comment on that, Wendell?
Just, we've talked a lot about where the interest rates are as far as where we keep our money in the government investment pool, and you can see this. This has grown. This was $110,000 roughly last year, and it's grown by $4,000 just sitting in that account over the course of the year, which is pretty significant. So, but this is the money that's dedicated to our school forest.
Okay. Any questions? Can I entertain a motion to approve?
I so move Swente.
Long second.
Motion is second to approve the beginning balance, 114,000 plus for the school forest. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, recommendation to commit 2.2 plus for future post-employment benefits. Any comment there, Wendell?
No, other than just what I had put in the description, we're seeing this number stabilize or even decrease a little bit just based on the cost of staff that we currently have.
Okay, then I entertain a motion to commit those funds to future post-employment benefits.
Hughes be so moved.
Second.
Kirsch, second.
Motion is second to commit the funds to post-employment benefits. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, 12, approve contribution to Fund 46 in the amount of $1.2 million to complete projects outlined in the capital projects. Anything there, Wendell, you want to comment on?
This money would be sufficient to cover the two projects, the new projects that I mentioned earlier in my report. More than likely, this would be close to the amount that we would contribute next month at the end anyway, so it's just getting it out there early, so it's dedicated to these types of projects.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve the 1.2 million to Fund 46.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Baloo.
Motion is second to approve the 1.2 million to Fund 46. Any further discussion?
My only thought around this is how are we making sure we, once we move the money into 146, it has to be used for capital projects. Guaranteeing that we are also taking care of, we saw a huge need here, for staff development dollars. And I just, my personal feeling is I would not like to see money put into capital projects that we have I'll call them academic or co-curricular related activities that those monies can best be used by. So I'm not challenging this number from saying it's an erroneous number. I'm just saying every time we transfer into that Fund 46, that money's gone, except for capital projects, and I don't want to put money there that might better be used for the benefit of the student directly. Just a comment.
Thank you, Nick. Any other discussion? Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the 1.2 million to be transferred into Fund 46.
I so move school ball.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 13, board referrals. Any board referrals?
Just wanted to say thank you to Guy.
Mhm.
All the hard work that you've done. Good luck to you.
Retirement's great.
But the problem with the retirement is you never get a day off.
Oh yeah, I do.
I'm willing to find out where.
Just find a place in your house somewhere where your wife can't find you.
No problem with that.
You don't have that issue? Okay. I do.
Were you looking for sympathy?
Yeah.
For the record, that's not me, Donna, that's him.
Okay.
Second thing I'll
14,
add is,
public comment. I'm sorry.
do some things poorly because you'll never be asked to do them again.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah. Okay. 14, public comment. I don't think we're gonna hear any, but any public comment? Okay, next is the motion to go into closed session.
So moved, Kirsch.
Second.
Baloo.
Motion is second to go into closed session. Roll call, please, Colleen.
Kemp, Kirsch,
Yes.
Baloo,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Hughesby,
Yes.
Kissinger Wolf,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Scuball,
Yes.
Twenty.
Yes,
Okay, we're in closed session. Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.